All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Picture this, the opening scene of a super tense, high-stakes anime. But okay, instead of some magical fantasy realm, we're dropping right into the intense, high-pressure world of global IT. Our main character? An 8th-year IT pro who's about to get hit with the ultimate corporate call to adventure. I mean, they'd always dreamt of working on global projects, right? But literally nothing could have prepared them for this sudden, honestly terrifying plunge into a massive mission halfway across the world. So grab your gear, because we are stepping straight into the unknown.
The boarding gate at Haneda Airport looked like a button to change life's difficulty. Man, that thought perfectly nails the internal monologue of our protagonist, just standing there staring at the gate. This wasn't some cozy little training seminar. It wasn't a guided tour. This was a sudden plunge into a real, high-stakes global assignment. You can almost feel that cinematic tension, right? That sudden realization that just stepping onto that plane means leveling up their career difficulty from normal to expert in, like, 5 seconds flat.
Section 1. The Sudden London Mission.
Okay, so every great story has an inciting incident, that shock to the system that kicks everything off. For our protagonist, just 1 month, literally 30 days into a massive new project, the boss drops a total bombshell. An immediate 2-week dispatch to the Waterloo Financial District in London. No warning, no months of prep, nada. Have you ever been thrown into the deep end at work like that? If you've ever felt that sudden imposter syndrome panic of facing a giant, totally impossible task, do me a quick favor and hit subscribe and like. It really helps us keep bringing these incredible professional stories to life for you. All right, let's meet the squad taking on this wild mission.
Check out this highly specialized 5-person party. Honestly, it reads exactly like an RPG character selection screen. We've got our protagonist as the application lead, backed up by a server team expert and an operations member. And leading the whole shebang, the project director, the ultimate boss character. Intimidating, silent, totally radiating authority. The kind of guy who only speaks the absolute bare essence of an issue. And hey, notice what's missing here? 0 sales staff. None. This wasn't a trip to pitch a product. It was a pure, high-stakes reconnaissance mission, just to understand the system.
Moving on to Section 2, Facing the Giant System. So now our protagonist is staring down the ultimate dragon of the story, and they aren't fighting a literal monster, but something vastly more complex. The objective was simple, but, well, terrifying. Understand the running global financial system. And the internal panic is just peaking. I mean, sure, they'd studied hard, they'd read the books about markets, settlements, trading, financial networks, sat through countless meetings. But they admit they only really had a sort of feeling of understanding. It was all completely theoretical. Now they had to fly to London to comprehend the real, breathing, massive system right at its core.
Because let's be real, a global financial system is an absolute behemoth. Think about these layers for a second. You have the servers, then the operations and monitoring, then these massive databases, intricate networks, extremely complex market connections. It is just relentless. For our protagonist, it felt completely overwhelming. It's like, the second you think you understand the database, the network layer throws you a total curveball. Once you grasp the servers, the market connections completely baffle you all over again. It's a giant interlocking puzzle of just immense complexity.
And the really crucial detail here is this number, 2. 2 weeks. At first, for someone on their very first overseas business trip, 2 weeks probably felt like an eternity, a grand adventure. But once they faced that giant system we just talked about, actually, scratch that. 2 weeks was impossibly, laughably short. It was barely enough time to scratch the surface, let alone master a system, where answering one question just spawned 10 new terrifying unknowns.
Which brings us to Section 3, the power of moving forward.
Faced with this impossibly complex system, a ticking clock, and a harsh, fast-paced English-speaking environment, our protagonist discovered the hidden, quiet power that you actually need to survive in global IT. And it's this punchy, brilliant realization: true ability is shown when you don't understand. Let that sink in for a second. We spend so much time trying to be the smartest person in the room, right? But the real test is what you do when you are completely and utterly lost. If this mindset shift is blowing your mind as much as it did our protagonists, definitely hit that like and subscribe button right now. Let's break down exactly what this looks like in practice. This perfectly illustrates the revelation our protagonist had while watching these top-tier professionals in London. Think about the traditional approach, waiting until you understand something 100% before taking a single action. It's safe, sure, but it's incredibly slow. Now contrast that with the global approach: hypothesize, communicate, and step forward into the dark anyway.
The best professionals out there, they don't wait until they completely understand some incomprehensible system in a foreign language. They just accept the confusion as the baseline and they move.
Section 4. Stepping into the unknown.
So let's look at the broader career lessons learned on those rainy London streets and how this exact survival strategy applies to literally any massive challenge you might face. Here are the step-by-step mechanics observed from those seasoned veterans. First, you jump in without knowing. Just accept the darkness. Second, form hypotheses constantly. Make educated guesses about how things work. Third, communicate to test those guesses. Ask questions. Fourth, start to slowly organize that structure in your mind. And finally, no matter what happens, keep advancing forward. Never freeze. That is the excellent survival strategy.
The source actually brings up a really fascinating, impartial observation about culture here. Japanese corporate culture often emphasizes understanding a system fully before acting, which is driven by this deep desire to minimize failure and ensure top quality. And honestly, that has immense value. But on massive international projects, there is a harsh global necessity. You simply cannot know everything. You have to embrace a failure-assumed experience. You dive in blind, fully expecting to stumble, because really, that is the only way to learn a system of that incredible scale.
In the end, our protagonist admits they didn't perfectly understand the Waterloo financial system after those 2 weeks. It was still full of mysteries. But the simple experience of stepping into the unknown, that changed everything. Walking through that tense, foreign financial district with completely incomplete knowledge, choosing to push forward rather than retreating to safety, that became their absolute most crucial first step toward becoming a true global professional.
So we're going to wrap up today's explainer with a question for you to ponder. Look at your own career, your own projects. Are you waiting to understand absolutely everything before you make a move? Or are you ready to dismantle that perfectionism, embrace the discomfort, and dive straight into the unknown? The next time your call to adventure arrives, don't wait for perfect clarity. Just step through the gate.